thousands upon thousands is down to a 1v4, and it's done! Acend are your Valorant Champions winners! The first of their kind to etch their names in the history book.
Everything started back in late 2020. After LVP disbanded, I got approached by Crimson, who was the general manager back then for Razor Edge, and he offered me to basically like create a new team for 2021 season. He offered like the head coach position, and he also said that they want to bring Koldamenta from the start, since they had good experience with Kolda from back in PUBG days. They knew him very well. They knew he's like a very hardworking person, so they wanted to have like basically like a starting set of people, that is me as a coach and Kolda as IGL. So we got together. I think it was even between holidays, like after Christmas, before New Year, like that whole week, we were pretty busy building a big document of players that we would like to try out, because it was completely new roster, so really anything went. And a lot of like good and like the most popular players, the best players, were all signed, because all the big organizations were getting ready for the next season, and they were already ready. So we had to get creative and basically look for hidden diamonds in like lower tier teams and stuff like that. So how we arrived at the roster that we had back then, it was Kiles that Koldamenta recommended. He never pushed, because we had like an understanding that people that I recommend from my experience, you can just recommend them, and then once we are trying out, we'll see, you know, it's no like friends invited and stuff like that. Everything was completely neutral, as objective as possible. So he recommended Kiles to the Sentinel role, and then I got recommendation actually from Zeek back then, because we're still like just after LVP days. When Zeek left to G2, we're still like communicating and chatting every now and then. And I just went one day and asked him, you know, can you recommend me any good players that are maybe up and coming, and we could try out? And he instantly said Starxo. So that came from like me talking to Zeek, and with the first tryout we knew that Starxo is instantly a lock, because of his personality, of his good energy, positive vibes, and also his skill as well. So Starxo was, I think, the very first person that we just instantly locked. Then we had cNed as well, amongst the players. It took us some trying, because cNed's English back then was a bit worse than it is now, so there was some problems with communication. But his English was always good enough to, like for game level, for high level gameplay. So after tryouts we locked him in as well. And then Kolda brought in Bonecold. I don't even remember how he found him, but he was also a very unknown player to many. He was back then playing in Helsinki Reds in like a full Finnish team. And yeah, that's how the team came basically. Like from my side, Zeek and cNed, from Kolda's side, Kiles and Bonecold, and we had our 5. That's how we formed. It was early January of 2021. We were called Don't Even Ask at the start, because we had to play qualifiers already. It was like, I think that when the final player joined, we had maybe like a week or 2 weeks before the first qualifier. Maybe not even that. It was like very short amount of time. So yeah, that's how we found it. So us as a team, the very first tournament we played was in LVP. We were called Don't Even Ask. We had some wins, we had some losses, and then just I think next week it was the Challengers like 1 qualification, I think it was called back then. It was basically like 3 qualifiers that led to Masters 1 in EMEA. So we got announced as Razor Edge just before the first qualification, and we had actually a pretty good run in the first qualifier. We beat like 3 teams, I think, and then we ran into FPX, which back then it was Heretics after their win in First Strike, and FPX, which had the momentum still building, was considered like the 2 top best teams in Europe, like by far, by everyone. So we ran into FPX kind of early, and we lost 0-2. Then the second qualifier, I think it was like next week, we got slapped like in round of 128. It was like we won 1 best of 3 and then lost in the second one against Cream Real Betis. So yeah, we just moved on to the next qualifier. We knew, you know, all or nothing. We're playing against Riggs GG back then, and we lost the first map, and second map was Acend, and we were 3-11 down. And the big credit goes to Koldamenta in that scenario, because he was always the one that was keeping the team spirit up, team morale up, and said that nothing is lost until it's lost, and all that stuff. And we actually managed to claw our way back from that 3-11 deficit, win Acend, and win the second map, and win everything in front, and qualify to the group stage, which was like the main goal from all the qualifiers. So it was like insane, like mental strength shown by Koldamenta, who was the leader, and also the players also following that strength. So it was really good. It was really good sign, I think, for us as a young team to be able to like come back in such a manner. So then we move on to the group stages for Masters 1. We had like a pretty interesting group. We had NIP. They were really, really good back then. I think they were considered like to be 3rd, 4th best in Europe. We had Ballista and one more team that I don't remember. We lost the very first opening game against NIP 0-2. So it was kind of rough. Like, we faced another good team and we got slapped again 0-2. Then we had the elimination game against Ballista, which a lot of people were saying that Ballista should probably beat us, just because I think they had like a very good showing against Fnatic. And we completely smashed them. That was nice. And then we had a rematch against NIP for the qualification out of groups. And with like having recent experience playing against them, we made some adjustments. Koldamenta had a lot of sleepless nights back then, and we actually managed to win. I think it was 2-1, and we managed to get out of groups, which was like exceeding the expectations that we had. It was like the goal we had. We just wanted to get out of groups. And then the playoffs start, and we get matched against FPX. So again, very good team. And again, just like against NIP, we adjust after the previous loss. We managed to change the way we approach the games against them. And we managed to, we lost the first map, we won the second, and then it was super, super close on Icebox. And by the skin of our teeth, we actually like won. And I remember winning against FPX in that semi-final felt better than winning Masters against Heretics. Like, winning against FPX, I think, was like the point, like, for everyone in the team. Like, everyone really, really wanted that, because they were like really, really hard team to play against. And then we moved into the finals against Heretics. I think like we already felt like we won everything, so we played without like any pressure. Like, no one expected anything from us, like even before that. I think there was like a funny statistic. The likelihood of us winning against NIP, against FPX, and against Heretics, people voted all of those between 10 and 20%. So we always had like 15% more or less to win, according to the like public. But once again, like, we had no pressure, no expectations. And we knew Heretics is like they were so good back then. They were really, really good. I have no idea how we won, but yeah, through sheer like willpower, and I think we still had the fire going from like the FPX series, and we managed to come out on top. I think it was still one of the best of 5 series played.
He's waiting on this recon, I'm pretty sure. Look at the double face comes through. Bonecold lands it.
Attackers win. They've done it. They've actually gone and done it. Acend managed to take down Heretics after going all the way, the distance in front of them. A true upset in the making. This is what dreams are made of for these boys.
That was the beginning of the story, like a good fucking start. Okay, so just after we won Masters 1, we had almost no break before the qualifiers, the first qualifiers for Masters 2 began. It was 9 days break between us winning and us having to play another qualifier, which was back then kind of insane. All the other teams had like plenty of time to change stuff, to build new stuff, to prepare, and the teams that played like had a deep run in Masters 1 were kind of handicapped. So we basically went into the next qualifier with the same stuff that we had from before, which was very little, because we started playing the first one just after the roster was made. So we straight went to the first qualifier for Masters 2, and then we ran to NAP, which back then you could say it was like our nemesis already, right? Because we faced them twice just recently in Masters 1. And unfortunately, we lost to them 1-2. It was again like a super close series, and we lost 1-2, so we were out of the first qualifier for Masters 2. Shortly after, the second qualifier follows. Again, very small time to prep. Again, we have like a very good and deep run. We didn't really have too many known opponents until we ran into Fnatic, which were really good back then. If you think about it, right? They finished second in Reykjavik. So in the second qualifier, we ran into Fnatic. We beat them 2-1, and then we played against Vitality after that, which we just had beaten in the first qualifier, and we beat them 2-0, right? So we go into the second qualifier and we lose to them, and I think that was like a very, very tough loss, because we knew we just had beaten them, we knew we can't do that, and it was like one of the last steps required, and we lost. So it was like one of the tougher losses I think we had like with the roster since the very start. We had like a huge break because we didn't make it to Reykjavik. There was like a big gap between the qualifiers and the LAN itself. So we had, I think maybe even like close to 2 months or something. And then the roster swap happened.
People are grinding right now, and Master 3 isn't long, so...
I heard Acend are unbeaten in scrims. They haven't lost...
Acend?
Yeah, I heard they're like... Because they got Zeek.
Zealand's best Valorant analyst.
So there is this narrative on the internet that, you know, G2 came in with the money bags and bought Koldamenta, bought whoever they want back then, from Heretics as well, right? They got Nukia and Vova. But that wasn't true. Kolda really wanted to leave. Like, he got approached by G2, and he really wanted to leave to the org because it was his lifelong dream to represent G2. It's like a Spanish org, Koldamenta is Spanish, so it was like his dream, and it could become a reality. So he really wanted to go, but G2 were not really prepared to buy him out. So that kind of created a little bit of a problem, that we had like a player that wants to go, but the other side doesn't like agree on the terms. And then I had the idea that Zeek was on the bench back then for G2, and I knew Zeek from Nolpenki days. Like we played on the same. I coached them when they were still Nolpenki with cNed, and he was really good, and I knew that. I had no idea why G2 put him on the bench in the first place. Like, he was such a good player. And I proposed this idea that we can maybe include swapping Kolda for Zeek in the trade, and yeah, and it happened. it happened. Koldamenta G2, Zeek came to us, everyone was happy. Kolda got his dream to represent G2. Zeek got off the bench, so it was like win-win both ways.
Drip. Yeah, I've been running and running to keep it 100. It's all that I wanted, but lately I don't.
Our win streak began after that. Zeek fit into the team really well. We knew Starxo from before, so they had like really good bond, and it was just a natural fit. We moved the IGLing role from Kolda because he left to Bonecold. We were not really sure back then how it's gonna work because we do not know in the future. But Bonecold was willing to switch to IGL because he had previous experience in his other teams. Yeah, and it worked out well. Like Zeek is an insane player, as you saw in the end of the year. And that's, the first tournament we had with this roster was LVP Rising Series 2. We didn't drop a map. We were feeling very hot. We're winning I think almost all of the scrims, like 90+%, I think. And it was a honeymoon period, which never really ended. Okay, so then Masters 3 qualifications starting at the summer of 2021. We had like a month or two with Zeek after he joined. We played the Rising Series 2 qualifier, which we won. And then we moved into the first qualifier for EMEA challenges for Masters 3. So everything went really good. I think everyone was already talking about how better we look after Zeek joined the roster, and we're like doing very good in scrims as well. And we proved that in the first qualifiers. We went on to beat everyone. We had some good teams on the way. We had BDS, FPX, Guild, and G2. I think we met G2 in the finals, where we beat them 3-1. And the only map that we lost to them was on Acend, where they just, I remember to this day, they were just 5 men pushing on attack every round. And it's funny because it seems very simple, but we just couldn't find an answer to that. But I mean, we went on to win the next map and we secured the win back then, 3-1. After that, we made it to the playoffs. And our first opponent was Navi back then. We had like a pretty convincing 2-0 against Navi. And then after that, we met Gambit, which I think after Masters 2, Gambit were activated. Like in Masters 2, they didn't make it closely to Reykjavik, but that was like the last bit of experience I feel like they needed. And they were really good from the start of the Masters 3 qualifiers. And we won the series against Gambit. I remember like the qualifying match, it was on Icebox, and Zeek just went crazy with the energy, with the gameplay, with everything. He fired up the whole team. He was just killing everyone with Reyna.
One more spawn. Nice! Nice, City!
One enemy remaining.
One more!
Still in sight.
Maybe Eva?
Sandwich, I think. Or holding sandwich.
Sandwich! Not fucking move!
Yeah, it was like a very memorable moment for me and for the whole team. That map, that qualifying map especially. And then after that, it was the very first bootcamp that we had with the roster. We went to Stuttgart to bootcamp. We had LVP Rising Series 3 from the bootcamp to get some preparation on officials in the bootcamp together. We played some games until I think we had to forfeit against Finest, just because of the scheduling reasons. But we already had like a secured spot in the grand finals of LVP in the end of the year, so it didn't matter for us too much. But just because of the schedule stuff, we had to forfeit. And that bootcamp was basically just to bond with the team, to get to know each other, like on the next level, basically, because before we were just from online playing. And yeah, it was really good experience. I think we bonded very well. We had some good scrims, good results again. And then we traveled to Masters Berlin, where we still had a little bit of time like to prepare. We had like maybe like a week in Berlin playing. And yeah, the group stage just started. We started with 2-0 against SMB, which, as I said before, I would consider them evenly as good as us and Gambit. Back then they were really, really good individually. Like, they reminded me of the old Heretics that won First Strike, like very similar playstyle, playing the whole map separated and being really insanely good individually. We managed to beat them 2-0. I think they underperformed a little bit because they also had like the first LAN that they had together. It was still a good game though. And then we went to fight against Vision Strikers, which we lost kind of miserably. But the thing is, and this I don't think anyone really knows, but we had just really bad day. And of course, it affects your like mental mindset when going into the games. If you have a lot of things going bad from the morning, it's not going to be a good match. So we had like a very similar thing happen to us as well on the same day that we had to play against Vision Strikers. We had a lot of unlucky stuff happening before the games that had nothing to do with Valorant. And it just kind of pushed us out of like a good winning mindset. And they still played really good. Like they were like a very good team. They were really hard to play against, but we were just not ourselves at that day. So we lost 0-2, and then we went to play against SMB again for the qualifier match, who makes it out of group as a second seed, and we won against against them 2-1. This time they took a map off us. It was close. We had to sweat a lot, but we made it. So going into the quarterfinals against 100 Thieves, we knew that we had accomplished our minimal goal, which was making out of groups, because that basically secured us the spot at Champions. However, like, we of course wanted to go even further. And then the playoffs start. I think we got like a really good opponent from all the seed ones. We got 100 Thieves. They were good, but I think other top seeds were better at that time. So we're kind of happy with the opponent that we had, and we had like a very close series and a very defining moment that Breeze game that I will, and I think everyone in the team will remember for the rest of our lives, where we were like 12-7 up and we couldn't close one round in like 6 rounds in a row. It just was so close, and like that was the most crushing loss we had, like by far. That was the loss that we had to have to improve even and go further. So to prep for the next event, for Champions, we played everything we could.
La entrada Morsi, va a ser la apertura, busca el duelo, cNed que prevalece, triple para el turco y otra para Kiles.
Bajo, de arriba abajo, lo prepara, pero cNed que pilla la sorpresa, no lo esperaba.
After Masters 3 was done, as I mentioned, we recognized what we wanted to work on, and it was getting as much as possible official experience. So we had 2 things coming up. One was LVP playoffs, and the second was RedBull HomeGround, which had that interesting format where you have your home ground and you always can play your map, which was really good for us, right? Because we can just play bind every time. We had a really good run in that tournament as well. We're still showing like strong form. We beat like all the teams that we played. It was Giants that was very strong back then before half of their team went to G2. And finally we met Gambit in the semifinals, where we had that little cheeky 13-0 on bind.
Play with time to be bought, HP to be dwindled if wanted.
Jump that.
Chronicle, but you got for us nothing. And now it's all down to one. This has been the wildest of games we've seen in a while. Defo at least gonna find Kiles, but the rest looks like a mountain in front of him that he has to try and climb. And oh, the shots go astray, and so does the entirety of the game. It's 13-0.
And then we met Liquid, who was super hot after Nivera joined them, right? Nivera joined, they won LCQ, they're super hot. Everyone's talking about them, they're playing really well. And we met them against, like in the finals of RedBull HomeGround. It was really, really good series, I think, as well. It was super close. Every map was won, if I'm not mistaken, by just 2 rounds. So it was like 13-11, 11-13, some overtimes. And yeah, but we ended up losing. We got a 2nd place in that tournament. We lost 1-3 to them. And after that, we went straight from the bootcamp to Barcelona for the LVP finals. So we just had the qualifiers for LVP finals, the Red Bull thing, instantly to the finals. So we're just farming these official games. We went to the finals. We had like a 3-day trip, I think, like 1 day to Barcelona, like an evening off. We went to some nice Spanish food. It was amazing. And it was actually crazy. It was like the first Valorant LAN with live audience. And the feeling was insane. And I could see it from our players. Like it was something else. And we won the finals against Movistar Riders. We had like 1 close map, I think, and 2 convincing wins. So we got that achievement under our, like we brought that back. After that, we knew like the schedule was packed fully. Like after that, we know we had like a week off. We come back, we rest a little bit, and then we go on to bootcamp for champions. So then we go on to bootcamp for champions. We had to quarantine for quite a bit, so we stayed in the hotel in Berlin. We practiced there, we scrimmed, we were getting ready. We had VivoKid, Acend, and Envy in our group. I would say it was probably a bit easier group than we had in Masters, so we're pretty happy with that, in Masters 3 I mean. We're pretty happy with the group, and the very first opponent we played was VivoKid. So we scrimmed them before, and we knew how good individually they were. We knew it's going to be a tough match. And yeah, we just straight up lost. And then we're quite sad, of course, after a loss. And we're going back to the hotel, to the shuttle, and then we saw on the tweets that apparently they were like using a camera that was not allowed. And then we got information, like we got informed by Riot just shortly after that. VivoKid got they got penalized and they lost that game. So we won. Instead of losing 1-2, we won 2-1. And yeah, the next day the ruling was changed, or even the ruling was put on hold. So us and VivoKid and Envy as well, we're just waiting because we had no information what's going to happen. Because Envy had to play the winners of VivoKid and us, because they already won against Acend. So everyone was just waiting, and the ruling came that the rounds were counted wrong, that they used the camera, and apparently we had to like rematch from like a 7-0 advantage. And at that point, like we knew it's no matter what happens, we're gonna be losing. Like if we win only because we had like a big advantage. If we lose, then it's just, yeah. So the pressure was insane. Like we had a couple of sessions with mental coach where we talked about how we can handle this, because we knew that it's gonna be really, really hard, especially since they were like really good, a really good team. And I think the biggest advantage they had is like a stylistic matchup. Like I think their style meshed really well into us. We moved past VivoKid. We had a match against Envy for the qualification to qualify into playoffs. And we got to play from the hotel because Victor from Envy had COVID and they couldn't play in the venue. And we still had like a little bit of LAN jitters back then because obviously like in Masters 3 we had that LAN inexperience problem, and the next big game was against Vivo Kid, not counting the Barcelona LAN, but of course it's not on the same scale, right? So the next big game was against Vivo Kid, which we also technically lost and then won because of the thing, right? And then, so it still wasn't a good experience. So we were still at that point not sure how good we can perform on LAN. This match against Envy, the fact that it was played from the hotel, I think it was like a big relief, especially after all the drama that we've just recently been through. Like all the players were under immense pressure. So yeah, it was like kind of like a nice relief. And then we knew that we can beat Envy. Everyone was talking them up a lot because they were like one of the better teams at that time in NA. But we scrimmed them quite a few times and we had like very good results all the time. So we were like very confident going in and we beat them pretty convincingly, I would say 2-0. And we made it out of groups. Then starts the playoffs. In the playoffs, the first opponent we got was Team Secret, which I think was quite a good draw for us. They surprised a lot of people. They came out of, I think, Gambit's group. And nobody really expected them to, except me because I had them in my pick'ems. But yeah, we beat them pretty convincingly. We move on into the semifinals. At this point, there's no weaker teams left at all. So it was us, Liquid, Gambit, and Crew. And Crew had like an amazing hot run. They beat Sentinels to get out of groups, which was still like Sentinels were really good. So yeah, no like top 4 teams. But at this point, I think like we kind of reached our expectations as well. We really wanted to win the whole thing, but we knew it's not going to be easy. Like all these teams left in the semis are just super good. So yeah, we went up against Liquid, and Liquid were still on their hot streak. They won everything after Nivera joined up until this point. Everyone talked about them. They're the favorites to win the whole thing together with the Gambit. And yeah, we had like a really good series against them. We knew how they play. We scrimmed them before a lot. We had like good preparation. I think they also had a little bit of like a slower day, but still, like I think we beat them pretty convincingly. We moved to the finals at this point. And in the finals, we meet our brothers, Gambit. We scrimmed them so many times as well. They're so good up until now, since forever, really. Like they're the best team and the most solid, I think. So it's really like good experience every time we play with them, no matter scrims or officials. Like the players are really close, so that's also very nice. It really feels like two brotherly teams, if you can put it like that. And yeah, that series was something else. Like we had Fracture ready, honestly. Like we liked our Fracture back then, but we got slapped so hard on that map 3. And the whole series, like it went full 5 games. It was like the hardest series we had since Masters 1 finals. It was actually very similar in a way. It was so close.
The wall goes up, but straight away ripped away.
The time, this is it, time to strike for Zeek. Starxo by his side. It's 12-12, Acend aren't done yet.
And yeah, somehow, some way we managed to, just start of the year we make the roster, end of the year we're the #1 team.
And for a team that was not afforded the spotlight or the chance at both Masters Reykjavik and Berlin, they had the only thing that mattered: trust in each other. It is our distinct honor to crown our inaugural VCT champions. Give it up for Acend!
Now we're rolling. I don't think anyone will stop us. The goal is 3 World Championships in a row.